Our next speaker is Mr. Ahmad Khafagy. Mr. Khafagy is the ECM service area leader for IBM.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be with you today to share IBM's experience in regards to national content digitization initiatives in the region, and specifically in Egypt with our client, the National Archives of Egypt. So today I'm going to talk about a case study for digitizing national content that is paper-based. The focus will be on the operational point of view, not from the technology point of view. So I'll focus more on the operational aspects of the engagement. So I'll start by introducing the National Archives of Egypt, what they do, and what are their responsibilities within the Egyptian government. And then I'll share the problem definition of the National Archives, the problem statement that we started working with them in 2005, and I'll then outline the solution that we have delivered throughout the past few years since we started this program with them in 2005. And I'll wrap up the case study with some challenges that we faced during the engagement and some lessons learned and recommendations from this engagement. So National Archives of Egypt is the central governmental entity that is responsible for collecting and preserving national content. Basically, they're responsible for gathering all historical paper-based content from different governmental ministries and governmental authorities. They were established in 1954. And the Supreme Council of the National Archives is responsible for putting all the rules for collecting and preserving the national content, and the rules for dissemination and publication of this national content to the public access, and of course the disposition disposition records management of this national content. So the problem statement in 2005 was as follows. The National Archives had like 25 million records spanned across 20 warehouses without being classified, without indexing, and all this history of Egypt was not searchable, was not retrievable whatsoever. So we started to work with them on a 4-year program to complete the classification and indexing and digitization of this Egyptian history. There is one famous story about the National Archives in the 80s of last century, and during the international arbitration between Egypt and Israel about Taba. The legal and the historian committee of the Egyptian of Egypt who were preparing the case for the international arbitration stayed in those 20 warehouses for like few months to bring some maps and some historic documents to support the Egyptian case. And actually Egypt was able to win this arbitration against Israel and to return Taba back because of the documents and maps found in this national archives that are aged hundreds of years ago. So this is how important and how critical to preserve the national content and specifically the historical archives of the nation's governments across the years. So the business problem at the National Archives could be classified in those 3 pillars: the content, the policies and processes, and the stakeholders or the people who are accessing this national content. Content, in 2005 there was no indexing standards whatsoever adopted by the National Archives. As I said, no classification, 25 million records not searchable or retrievable. They wanted to adopt the ISAT standard, which is the most commonly used standard, which will enable them to exchange this content with other national archives throughout the world. For the policies and processes, again, there was no standard processes for collecting this national content from different governmental authorities. And there was no rules or regulations for dissemination of this national content and publishing this national content to the public users. The third pillar about the people, there are different stakeholders that the National Archives want to regulate and want to govern the access of those stakeholders to the national content. From these stakeholders are the public users, scholars and researchers, and other external governmental entities as well. The main reason one of the main jobs of the National Archives is to facilitate studying this national content to scholars and to researchers, to enrich the history studying activities of the nation. So the target solution was actually an integrated solution that links the content with the processes and policies and regulate the access of different stakeholders to this content. So this is actually how we designed the solution to address the business problem of National Archives. As you can see, we have various activities of the digitization process. Some of the activities are done on-site and some others are done off-site. The warehouses that host those 25 million records is one place where the metadata collector operators use digital recorders to record the metadata of these content, where these audio files would be transferred to an off-site facility for the data entry services of this metadata. And the reason why we did that is the time limitation. The 4-year program and was a constraint with the space provided by the National Archives. This operation requires hundreds of operators to complete the digitization and classification in the 4 years, and the operational capacity was designed to deliver 140,000 records per week. So the warehouses has all the operators that are collecting the metadata, and there's a scanning center that was equipped with special scanners to address the fragile nature of the paper content that has zero light effect on the paper while scanning it. The data center has all the infrastructure, the content management solution, the storage, and all the infrastructure required to run this operation. Of course, there were research halls which hosted the content experts who were reviewing the output of this operation before and setting the confidentiality and security rules for the public users to access this national content. So actually, this is how the process flows. I think I've covered most of it. One of the important aspects of the scanning is OCRing Latin documents to enable free text search capabilities on this Latin documents, and of course any content that to be published to the public users has to pass through the content experts, the historians who review the output of the digitization operation before publishing it to the end users, to the public users. So I'll wrap up this case study with some of the challenges and lessons learned. The challenges, actually, the volumetrics of this national content, this 25 million records within the 4-year program to complete the entire process was quite challenging, and the space limitations in the National Archives drove some decisions in regards to the integration of different activities of the digitization process. Because the National Archives of Egypt has a lot of documents with non-Latin languages, so this limited the possibility of using OCR engines to speed up the indexing operations for this content. And of course, a lot of process re-engineering was required to replace the manual index systems used by the National Archives with the standard processes that adopts industry standards like the ISAD standard. So for the recommendations for similar national content digitization initiatives, we believe that the most important part is to have a clear vision from the start, to separate how to deal with the current archives of the current governmental ministries in a separate direction from the historic ones, because they need to integrate, but initially they should be in different streams. Design decisions like centralized or distributed conversion models need to be taken at early stages of the initiative, as well as some other decisions like off-site and on-site activities. Communications and effective communications and change management plans are very important in similar initiatives, because there are a lot of parties involved in this initiative to enforce the transfer of governmental archives to the National Archives. It required a lot of communication with different parties to enforce laws and regulations to do that. So effective communications and change management plans in governments is very essential for the success of this initiative. The last 2 points are the executive sponsorship for this, for the same reason. A lot of parties and executive sponsorship and decision-making process needs to be clear from day one in this initiative. And finally, the identification of relevant standards like ISO and ISAD needs to be known at very early stages of this initiative. So I think that's all, and thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.